All right, you budding system repair guys, listen up. I had to do this video again. Um, Foxfire crashed, and it's doing weird things. I did a complete video, and in places, parts of the video are missing, and in some places, the voice does this. Thanks a lot, Windows. Thanks a lot, Foxfire. Anyway, here's my story. I worked on this banking system, and it was new. It was from Italy. And there were two other guys that worked on the system with me, and one guy was in charge. And the boss comes in several times with this cable, and he hands me this cable, and he says, "So and so requested this cable." Okay, give it to him when he comes in. Boss leaves. Guy comes in. I give him the cable, and three times he went back and threw it in a box and mumbled something. So I didn't ask. I'm not going to ask. Guy's very moody. So anyway, one day I'm sitting there and I'm doing my work, and the boss comes in. He sits down with him, and he starts talking to the guy. I'm not listening. I don't want to hear it. And the boss turns and he says to me, he goes, "John, you have to look into these battery backup units. We have 10 in for repair, and it's for that system." And he called them BBUs, battery backup units. So anyway, I said, "All right." So I get one out. I put it over on my bench. I'm going to open up, just look inside. And the guy's mumbling, the guy in charge, he's mumbling. So I open it up and I pull the lid off it, or the case, and there's a battery in there, and it's a gel cell. And I have experience with gel cells. So a guy gave me a bunch of brand new ones that sat somewhere, and they dried out. And he told me, he goes, "Yeah, you take a hypodermic needle, each section of the battery, I think there were 6 volters, and each cell has a lid on it. You don't even have to take the lid off. You just take a hypodermic needle." And he knew how many drops of water to put in there. And it goes down. And if you take one of those batteries apart, there's like insulation in there, let's see, the stupid Monsanto. No, not Monsanto. Um, it's glass wool. And that stays moist, and it makes the battery work. And that's what's in each one of those cells, on the ones I took apart. So now I have this unit apart, the BBU, and there's a battery, and I put my meter across it, and it's totally dead. So I plug the thing in, not hooked to the computer, just plug it in. And I see one light comes on the front of it. And I measure across the battery, and I have like 13 volts, 13.8, whatever. So the guy's going on, and I said, "Look," I said, "this unit right now is putting 13 volts or more across the battery. The battery, if it's a lead acid cell, it's a type of lead acid cell, and it's going to start taking a charge. And I'm going to leave it on for a half hour. A half hour later, I pull the plug out, put the battery still dead. So I disconnect the battery. I go down the back to the parts room, and I just show the girl. She goes in the back. She gets me one. She brings it out, and I take it up, and I bolt it on, and I measure it instead. I plug in the battery backup unit. I leave it for a half hour. Unplug it, measure the battery. Battery's charged. Now I go to put it over next to the computer, and I realize I have to be able to turn the computer off and the power to the BBU at the same time, just like it's a power fail. So I put the battery backup unit in a power strip and the computer in the power strip. I ran the power strip now goes down to a power pole. So now all I need is the cable that goes from the BBU to the computer. So the guy goes, "We don't have the thing." So I said, "Well, let me look at the documentation." So I go in, and there's a picture, a graphics of the cable and the connectors, what kind of connectors there are. And I said, "Gee, that looks really familiar." And he gets nervous. But I'm like, "Why is he nervous?" I go over to the box, and I'm going to make a cable. And there they are. He kept ordering them rather than work on the job. He kept telling the boss, "I need the cable." The boss couldn't remember that he had gotten the cable. So I pick up one and I go, "Gee, this looks like it." Now he's really mad. He's starting to steam. And I go over and I plug it into the BBU. I look at the part number on the cable, and it matches. Plug it in, and then I power up the computer, and I put a diagnostic in it. It's running. I go over to power pole, and at this point, the boss is over there. And I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got a program loaded in the computer. It's running a diagnostic. I'm going to knock the power out to both the BBU and the computer. wait a while, plug it back in, see if it comes up running. And I do that. And both of them start on me. They have, the boss has one theory why now it didn't work, and the other one's got they're both experts now. So I said, well, I have a feeling that the software has to have a BBU program in it, or the computer itself has to have that option. You just can't hook a BBU up to a computer and expect the computer to update itself. So I said, I'm going to call Tom. And my boss didn't want me to call Tom, but I called Tom anyway. Tom was my instructor when I went to school for that product. Call him up, and he goes, yeah, he says, they're coming through. And he goes, they're working over here. So he says, basically, he puts a banking program in, and they unplug the main power, which knocks the power out to the BBU and the computer, but the BBU keeps the memory going or up in the computer. He's explaining. I said, yeah, I know that. I said, could you load us? So I told him what diagnostic. Put that diagnostic in. You can see it running on the screen, and then do that. So he says, I can do that before lunch. So he calls me right back. He says, that works. He goes, you put the diagnostic in, you load it up, you run it, you got a pattern going on the screen of the computer. You unplug the main power and wait and plug it back in, and it comes right up. I said, that's all I needed to know. I said, it's not doing that over here. I said, I got a feeling my firmware has to be changed on my motherboard. I said, can you look into this for me? He goes, I really want to go to lunch. He says, go to lunch. He says, after lunch, I'll do it. So after lunch, he calls me up. And I said, did you look at the numbers of the firmware? They're EEPROMs. He goes, no. He says, I done better than that. He says, I called over to your building. I talked to the guy that programs the EEPROMs, and he's going to bring you out a set. So he brings me out a set. Now I'm plugging it in to the, I plugged the EEPROMs in. Now I got the guy that don't want to do the job and the boss hanging over me. And I put the computer on, and I'm running the diagnostic. And then I unplug it, and I'm waiting 5 minutes or so. And I plug it back in, it comes right up in the diagnostic. And the one guy says, that doesn't prove anything. I'm like, yes, it does. And then the boss doesn't want to argue with the guy because he's like, wait. I said, it does. If you want someone to work on this now, get someone else. I said, that unit there had a bad battery in it. That's all it's wrong with. The switching supply is fine. So anyway, the boss goes off, and I start pulling the other units out. And they're all bad batteries. They've sat too long in a hot warehouse. So I go down to the back. I show the girl. She gives me more batteries. I do all the BBUs. I put a DOA tag on each BBU. I also put a note and put that clear tape over it that to say, guy, this BBU will not work with the unit unless the firmware on the motherboard is at a certain rev level. You know, big letters. So if the guy gets a new BBU, he knows to check the motherboard firmware, or that the whole system, it's not going to work. So that's how that went. So the guy, he was steaming for a few days. You know, I showed him up. That's how it happens. See, when you're the guy they finally have to go to, and you know, other people hate you. They just hate you. Now I'm going to see if this video came out because, like I said, Windows sometimes tries to do an update when I'm doing a video, and it messes it up. And then sometimes when I first turn the computer on, Foxfire crashes on me, and it tries to do a restore and the whole thing, and it messes the video up. I think that's it. All right, that's it for now.